Hi and welcome back to the GemHawks YouTube channel. Today I want to show you a really fast building, suitable for beginners, entry-level wire wrapping technique, which I'm going to call a basic banded cabochon wrap. Now you can use it on ovals and rounds and regular shapes, but you can also use it on irregular shapes with just a little bit of forethought. Now this is utilising 0.8mm gauge raw copper wire and 0.4mm gauge. This, despite looking like the most amazing piece of Amazonite, is in fact polymer clay, as made by my lovely friend Ginny. So, without further ado, that 0.8mm gauge wire we were talking about, it's raw copper, uncoated and untreated. It's quite soft. All I have done is run this between thumb and forefinger a couple of times once it's come off the reel, and I have three, let's go with about 10 to 12 inch, so 25 to 30 centimetre lengths of 0.8mm gauge, and I will put American sizes for the wire in the description below. So just running those on the board between thumb and forefinger. As I say, I have three of them. I've also got some 0.4mm gauge wire just over here in exactly the same raw copper wire, and I'm just going to unspool a very small amount and snip that away. In the centre section of my three segments, I'm just going to get those to sit neatly side by side. You may find it helpful, if you prefer, you can hold onto these so that they sit side by side with a pair of pliers or with a third hand if you have one. But to get started, I'm just going to take 1.5 inches over the top and wind that around, keeping those wires side by side. I don't want them bunching up, I want them to sit neatly just side by side, and I'm going to band them about 5 or 6 times. Now ideally what you would do is remember how many times you've gone around. I'm going to say that this is the inside of the piece, and we always trim the wire on the inside that's going to sit against the gemstone or the cabochon or whatever you're wrapping. I'm just going to get that nice and tidy, get those to sit neatly side by side, draw that last one around and over the top, scooch them up together, give that a bit of a squeeze, and then you can just elevate that uncut wire and trim like so. Always remembering to just take that elevated wire back down to the base section, making sure those are nice and neat. So I've decided that I'm going to work with this piece of green onyx, which I found literally just at the bottom of a bag. Don't know when I acquired it, but it's quite lovely. And also green and copper go together really, really well. So the first thing I'm going to do is make sure that my wires are nicely neat, sat side by side. I'm flipping the cut ends away from me, so I'm looking at what will become the outside of the design, just making sure that that banding is neat and tidy before giving it one last squeeze. Now you can work with any flat facing pliers. I am just going to match up the straightest edge of the outside of my pliers here. I'm going to hold on to the end of where I've banded that together, and I'm taking the outside two wires down and away from me, leaving the central one on its straight line. Now I need to do that on both sides, so I'm just going to flip those around. Just try and take it down to the board a bit so it's slightly more in focus. So the outside two wires are being pushed up over the centre. So you'll end up with something like this. And we're just going to pull the top two wires ever so gently upwards and leave the back ones nice and flat. So I'm going to do this stage by stage, but it is a really simple cabochon wrapping technique that is suitable for people with very limited experience in wire work. So the next thing that I'm going to do is put the cabochon into the centre of the design. I'll probably set this one portrait mode because we tend to see a little bit more of the cab set like this. It'd be a lovely design to use with a cameo as well. And I'm just going to wrap that central line so that it sits around the outside margin of the cabochon that we're working with, keeping it above those rear two wires and just coming up around the outside edges. You don't need to worry too much about setting up the centre for the time being. Just going to look to get a nice firm shape, an idea of what the gemstone size is in the centre there. If you really want to at this stage, you can draw those central wires up and over the top and put a little kickback on them at the 12 o'clock position so that they don't get too much in your way. But I think I'll just smooth that for now, just so that it's out of the way. So that gives us an idea, if I remove the cabochon, of what it's all going to start looking like. So the next thing I'm going to do is start forming a shape around the bottom half to hold the cabochon in position. So I'm going to grip where we banded at the bottom, and on top I'm going to just use my finger or my thumb to get a nice smooth swoosh over the top of the gemstone, and the same on the other side. So the difference when you flip this over and you look at the back is I've tried to create a little bit of elevation. I just slide that gemstone in so that we know the wire has got enough over the surface of the gemstone. If you make this too shallow or too narrow, then your gemstone might just pop out the front anyway. If I flip this over and we look at what will become the back, the two wires that are coming up at an angle, they can be straight because we're working today with a cabochon which is flat at the back. So I'm just going to draw those over in a straight line so that they intersect that outside circuit that sits around the outside of the gemstone. They intersect at the same place as those front two lines. So what we're going to do is just pop that back down on the board and take stock of what we've done. So we've got swooshes at the front, swooshes at the back. The swooshes at the front are slightly elevated so that when we slide that gemstone in, we do in fact have enough space to catch hold of that. That's looking really good. So I'm going to take those out of the way. I'm just going to make sure that they reflect each other. It doesn't have to be an exact science, but I like to think that there's a bit of effort and attention to detail at this stage. So the next thing I'm going to do is just turn this up towards me slightly, so that I can grip hold of both of those swooshes and then turn the wires up. I've only actually grabbed hold of one, but well, never mind. We'll go back for a second bite. Grab hold of that second one and turn that up as well. So what you will end up with is 3 swooshes going in the same direction. Now you'll need to do exactly the same on the other side, but just for the sake of speed, I'm just going to show you on this one side. So draw our 3 now parallel wires. If you want to take the one that sits at the back slightly out to the back, that's always good, and slightly out to the front, so that you know what it is that you're doing and how you're working with things. So I'm just going to sit those neatly into position and take some of the residue of that 0.4mm gauge that we were working with earlier. And I'm just going to start by wrapping a couple of centimetres, maybe 1.25 inches around in one direction. Once I've got a couple of wraps going, and I know that that cut end is going to be on the inside again, I'm just going to turn that over. I can slide that down into position, and I'll show you by turning that upwards so that it sits just where that curve joins the main band. So again, it would be nice if you could reflect the number of coils you did at the bottom. They're not really coils, are they? I'm going to squash them flat so they're bands. So let's say that that's the right number. Give that a squeeze, make sure that's nice and flat. Take that last tail over so that it sits on the inside. The reason we do that is if we squash it nice and flat, it's not going to harm your gemstone, but also once your gemstone is set and into position, it means that it won't be able to catch on any clothing or the such. So you'd repeat that on the other side as well. I'm just going to sit that in so you can get an idea of what that will look like. Like so. So exactly the same on the other side. I'm just going to smooth that up out of the way for now so we don't have to worry about it. The next thing that we're going to do is grip a hold of the banding that we've just created on the side, and again drawing the back wire and the front wire forwards, but this time we're going to put quite a sharp angle on it. So your front wire will again need to just elevate slightly so that it has space for the gemstone. The wire at the back can be nice and flat. Once you've got those coming away from this outside wire, I'm going to grip hold of that with my pliers. I'm going to push firmly up against them. So that's slightly out of whack, and at the back we just need to straighten that up. And if I pop the gemstone in, you'll see what that will look like. And what we're going to do is trace this front wire so that it meets at the 12 o'clock position in a nice smooth line. What I'm looking to do is come a set distance away from the edge margin of the gemstone and then chase that all the way around, up, over and past the 12 o'clock position. So if you do that on both sides, I'm going to bring in one that I've worked on before, but what you just need to do is repeat what we've done on the first side on both sides, and if I pop that on, you'll see what it should look like. So we've got those swooshes at the front, reflected approximately at the back, and then we've got this angled line coming away over the front of the gemstone on both sides, meeting those 12 o'clock upright bends with the central wire, and on the back I'll just add that little bend that I didn't do, like if I actually remove the cabochon it would be quite clever, like so. This is on the back again, so we're just reflecting what we've done on the front. Pop the cabochon back in and you should be able to see what we have achieved so far. So I've got my lovely wires, I'm just going to draw those forwards away from the gemstone. The central wire is hugging all the way around the gem and coming away at the 12 o'clock position. Flip over. The rearward wires are reflecting what's on the front, and in this way what that means is they won't be able to come undone. Now there's two rearward wires we're going to use to tie the back in, and that's what we're going to do first. So I'm going to trim away to around about just over half an inch, just under half an inch, sorry. I'm just going to take that to tie at the top of those 12 o'clock uprights that we created, and I'm going to do that by using my pliers because it's just a little bit easier, so that we've got at least one wrap around those 12 o'clock positions. Just tighten that up neatly, trim away the excess and get that nice and tidy. And then you'd repeat on the other side. I'm just going to flatten that down actually, there we go. On the other side as well, so take the tail around the upright that it is opposite to. So if we just take stock for a second at the back, the right hand wire from the halfway up section has come all the way over to the left hand upright, and it's just wrapping around. The left hand wire has gone all the way over the top. It's a little bit unsmooth, but you can take a little bit of extra time. You can actually edit this because we're working with 0.8 post creation. You can just tidy that up slightly. But if I show you from the front what we're doing, I'm just taking the end of that wire that we've just trimmed all the way around at least once, and then trimming away. Make sure you cut the right wire, try not to hit yourself in the face with the wire, do wear safety glasses, like so, squeezy squeeze, and then this one squeezy squeeze also. So what you'll see is at the back we are tied in, there's no way that your cabochon's going to fall out the back. Flip that over to the front, and then we would repeat exactly the same process as we've just done. It's a little bit too high, so I'm just going to push that down slightly. So you would repeat exactly the same process, although what you can do if you prefer a more fancy bail at the top, take the wire all the way around. So again, the left hand one swooshed around the gemstone over to the right hand upright. I'm going to take that all the way around, and then I think I'm just going to leave that long wire coming up and away at the top. So we've got more to play with our fancy bail. Exactly the same on the other side, all the way around, back to the front, and then pull that up like so. And if I show you now quickly side by side, that's the variation that you can make with an interesting shaped gemstone or resin cabochon, polymer clay cabochon in this instance. And then I've just woven this together to create a fancy bail. So that was your speed run introduction to wrapping a cabochon with ease, absolutely suitable for beginners. Simply